Hi YouTube. What I have here is what I hope is a decent build with some RTX 2060s. Obviously, if I'm posting this on YouTube and you're watching it, that it worked out to some degree. So I just want to go over the list and show you what I'm doing. Is it's sort of an experimental test rig gaming machine, and give you my results so that you can decide what you want to do if you build something similar. So first we have the motherboard, two 2060 RTXs. They're by EVGA, so they have the dual fans, and all this will be listed in the specs. And I do follow Brandon Coin and UDF Tech, and they had a couple builds that were kind of gamers and then a gamer miner, and so I kind of followed their list to some degree or another. I did upgrade the power supply from a 550 to a 750. It's also platinum instead of gold. It was another $20, but I felt, for the two cards it would be necessary. Also has a 10-year warranty, and Seasonic seems to have a really good reputation. The Samsung SSD. I have NAS drive, Buffalo, so I have storage on twin rated hard drives, so important stuff goes there. A couple fans to keep it cooler. Also a radiator fan for the processor, so I'm hoping to be able to push the air properly. A Ryzen 5 processor. Again, all this will be in the list so you can see what the specs are. This is the FPGA Squirrel miner, which has not had a release miner yet, so it's sort of an issue, but I will get further into details with that as we go along. And then I have some Corsair RAM. So the purpose of this build is to be a gamer. It's not a gamer in the sense that it's something that I do as a competitive basis, but something that, I wouldn't mind for myself or the kids. And the primary purpose, of course, since the 2060s don't SLI, which I do have 1080s, Ti's that I could use off of my other rig, that might be something I experiment with as well. But because these are lower power draw, and I have talked to Squirrel about, or Acorn about, the possibility of them supporting the miner with these cards, it's something I wanted to try out. And then, of course, we have the Pantech case, so we'll go from here. Pantech 350 or P350X case, and I chose it because it does have, it's a pretty inexpensive case, and it does have room for the fans for the most part. It does come up with this fan in the front, but I'm going to push that to the back and put the radiator in the front, and hopefully get the airflow we need to play and do mining on occasion. So the front of the case just pops off and gives you access to the drive bays. There's some gear that they give you there, and then you can deal with your fans and installation. So the Seasonic has modular plugs for pretty much everything, but it does come in a nice case. It looks like they took the time to go through everything, and seems to be well put together, and like I said, has a good reputation. So as you can see laid out, there's a lot of modular plugs, that go to the graphics card or to the motherboard. Also comes with the wire ties and this regular power cord to the wall, and the screws and Velcro to keep everything neat. The back panel just unscrews and slides out, and it gives you the ability to do your hard drive installation here. Also, your cable management all underneath, and the ability to slide your power supply in the bottom. So now the power supply is installed. I'm going to go around and we'll install the motherboard. So we've removed the front case fan and made it a pusher. But I also have these two thermal takes to go up underneath here, since they're a little bit thinner and blow air out the top. But might be sending this one back because it's got a little bit of a rattle, which I assume is bearings. But we'll see. If you're following along, don't install the fans first until you have the motherboard installed. Also, this little guy will have the screws and things that you need for your motherboard to install to the preset riser in the box. And we're starting to put the motherboard together, not pinching any wires, and we're able to sneak past that fan. We'll reinstall the top one that has good bearings. So here's the motherboard installed. It went really easily. This case is really nice. You just get the 6 or 8 screws and screw it down, and it seems to look really nice so far. So I'll see if I can do this one-handed, but my concerns was that the motherboard has 2 M2 slots, one here and then one down here. And so I'm not sure, initially which location would be able to be used and still have clearance for the video card. So my thoughts are that one, because the video card, if I can get this in here without dropping it, looks like it'll plug in nicely on the side of it. Obviously the second card down here is going to cover that slot. Here's the Ryzen 5 2600 we'll be installing, and have a spare CPU fan, but we'll be putting that in the motherboard. So the CPU is installed, fairly simple, line it up, cam over, and then also the RAM. I decided to go with the Corsair 16 gigabyte non-unicorn version. So as a note of caution, when routing the power to the motherboard, I really didn't want to put any bad bends on that cable. So coming through straight, I put way too much of a bend, so I actually had to go the only other hole that would fit the block, which was higher. Down lower, going through here, is not a good idea because it just would interfere or possibly bend the header pins there. Here we have the hard drive mounted to the caddy, and the cable's installed, but not routed or tied properly yet. Also connecting some of the cabling and the fans to the motherboard. I have the cooler installed, but unfortunately the lines are going to be too tight over the top of the graphics cards. Also, always tape that up just so that you don't mess with your thermal paste. And I also spaced the RAM as per recommendations from Asus. Now the cooler is installed, and it has room for the video cards, but it still needs a lot of cable management still. So this is the finished product for the most part, with the cables tied up, but the 2 graphics cards are installed. The little Acorn is sitting down in there. The water pump is installed, and I've started it, and apparently it does run, and I'll show you the cables on the back. Management is okay, but I can probably improve this. I just wanted to make sure that everything was plugged in before I zip tied and then re-zip tie. And I'm not too worried about the RGB, but I will continue this once we get to the software. So I had a little bit of an issue setting up the hard drive. It wasn't recognized in the BIOS, and it wasn't even recognized if you plugged it into this adapter, say to the USB. Found out after looking at drivers and migration tools and all sorts of other things that there's sort of an obscure partition. You have to go type in partition in Windows 10 on a different machine, go in, and you have a couple selections. You can either do MBR or format it to or partition it in a GPT. So you want the GPT because that's the newer standard, and then you can format it, assign a drive letter sort of thing, and then when you plug it into your new build, it'll actually work. So yeah, a little bit of a hang up. I was able to, from Microsoft, get Windows 10 onto the USB stick there, and we'll be installing it. And I can use my prior machine's Windows 10 sticker to or serial number to activate it. So we'll see how that goes shortly. In Windows 10, I finally did get the drive to be recognized. I actually had to switch SATA cables to the bottom header on the motherboard, if that helps anyone. But I ran up to this problem. I formatted it in the new GPT format, but of course Windows doesn't like that, so it wants it in the MBR, so I'm going to have to delete that partition and repartition it and go from there. Playing around, found out that you can't, in the USB installer of Windows 10, actually repartition the drive from GPT back to MBR, so I had to go back on a different laptop. I could convert it to MBR in the partition program of Windows 10, then reinstall it and continue on with installing Windows to the drive. And it looks like we're going to go. So I had a little bit of an issue with this EVGA cooler, just my connection issue. I did flash the BIOS on the B450F Asus motherboard, and it was about 6 months out or back. Anyway, the fan speed wasn't picking up, but there's a couple issues. One, you had to switch it from DC to, I think it was PMW, which means managed by the software type of thing. And also down here, there's a connection on the fans. There's two connectors that actually have to go up. I thought it was just a pass-through with an extra, but only one of the fans was working. And of course you want those to be managed by the software, so that way it can keep the processor as cold as it needs to be. So there's two headers, and the one that says CPU and then CPU optional, so it's actually working with the one in CPU optional, which is the lower one that the cooler is plugged into, and the motherboard picks it up and then switches it to being managed as the primary CPU cooler fan. So I'm probably going to make this a two-part video. I've got a lot of calibration to do, but here you can see the 1080 Ti's, EVGAs, and I actually have them pretty cool because I have an air filter blowing directly into a hood I created, but I'm not going to show you that because it's pretty custom, or a little red-green, I guess. But we're getting pretty good souls on using G minor. Now if we switch over to the new 2060s, sorry, it's been a long day, we have those set up and we have the fan speed, and we're good to go there. Sorry about the video quality, but when I tried launching G minor, it pretty much crashed if I had the memory up anywhere near the 200. I'm still gonna try to optimize it, but the lowest I can get on the power setting was 65. I don't have this thing into the wall monitor like I do with the other rig, but as you can see, negative 100 and 0 on the memory. It gets up. The one card is about 67 and the other card sticks around 64. And as far as souls are concerned, I'm getting about between 16 to 18, and the entire wattage there looks like it's about 240 watts. I've seen it a little bit lower, but I'll continue to work on that, and then I'm going to update this with a second video to show the how the squirrel miner and how we can get these other things to work. One last thing with the squirrel miner, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it definitely has a high-pitched fan noise. So if you're not going to immediately use it or experiment with it, it might be best to leave it uninstalled. You're going to obviously not have wear on it and wear out the fan. But it is installed in there, and it definitely makes a little bit extra noise. I have a little bit of vibration from the case fan up here, but I'll deal with that. So there you go.